The night sky above Japan was silent at first. No warning, no explosions, only darkness hanging over the cities below. Then the sound arrived. Deep, heavy, unfamiliar. It rolled across the sky like distant thunder growing closer every second. Japanese civilians looked upward in confusion, while military spotters searched desperately through the darkness. Then they saw them, huge shadows moving through the clouds. Massive bombers unlike anything Japan had faced before. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress had arrived, and the war was about to change forever. By 1944, World War II had already consumed much of the planet. Across the Pacific, Japan had spent years advancing through Asia, while its military dominated the skies with experienced pilots and aggressive tactics. But the balance was shifting. American industry was producing aircraft faster than Japan could destroy them. New weapons entered the war constantly. Bigger, faster, deadlier. Then came the B-29. It was enormous compared to most bombers of the time. Four giant engines powered the aircraft high above enemy defenses, while advanced technology allowed it to travel farther and carry heavier bomb loads than anything Japan expected. American crews called it the Superfortress for a reason. Japanese pilots quickly discovered why. The first major raid shocked military commanders across Japan. Radar stations detected incoming formations, but the bombers flew so high many Japanese fighters struggled to intercept them effectively. Pilots climbed desperately toward the aircraft only to find themselves losing altitude control, oxygen, and speed before even reaching attack range. And when they finally got close enough to see the B-29 clearly, many were stunned. The aircraft looked massive in the sky, almost untouchable. Machine gun turrets covered multiple angles, allowing American gunners to fire in nearly every direction. Some Japanese pilots attacked anyway, diving toward the bombers through heavy defensive fire while explosions lit the sky around them. Many never returned. Inside the B-29s, American crews remained tense as anti-aircraft fire exploded around the formation. The missions were long, exhausting, and deadly. Crewmen wore heavy flight gear against freezing temperatures at high altitude, while engines roared endlessly beside them. Every mission meant flying directly into enemy territory knowing mechanical failure, enemy fighters, or a single lucky shell could destroy the bomber instantly. But the raids continued. Again and again, the Japanese military tried desperately to adapt. Fighter pilots launched interception missions day and night, while searchlights scanned the sky above major cities. Air raid sirens became terrifying sounds across Japan as civilians rushed toward shelters beneath growing fear. Then the firebombing raids began. American commanders changed tactics, sending B-29 formations lower across Japanese cities during nighttime attacks. Instead of precision bombing alone, massive amounts of incendiary bombs were dropped across urban areas packed tightly with wooden homes and buildings. The results were horrifying. Entire sections of cities exploded into flames within minutes. Winds generated by the fires spread destruction rapidly through crowded streets, while civilians fled through smoke-filled darkness, searching desperately for survival. One of the most devastating raids targeted Tokyo itself. That night, the sky turned red. Wave after wave of B-29 bombers approached the city, while Japanese defenses struggled to stop them. Anti-aircraft guns fired endlessly into darkness as fighter pilots climbed desperately toward the incoming formations. But there were too many bombers, and too much fire. Incendiary bombs rained downward across the city, smashing through rooftops before erupting into massive flames. People ran through burning roads carrying children and belongings while others jumped into rivers trying to escape the flames surrounding them. Buildings collapsed across the city as explosions echoed through the night. Above the inferno, the B-29s continued flying steadily through smoke-filled skies. Japanese pilots attempted interception after interception, but many attacks ended in disaster. Some fighters exploded under defensive gunfire, while others lost visibility entirely inside heavy smoke and flames. Pilots who survived described the raids as overwhelming. The bombers just kept coming. One formation disappeared into darkness. Another appeared behind it. Then another. The destruction seemed endless. Inside Japanese command centers, panic grew rapidly. Military leaders realized the situation was becoming catastrophic. Factories, transportation systems, industrial districts, and entire urban areas were being damaged faster than repairs could be completed. The B-29 campaign was no longer simply military pressure. It was psychological warfare from the sky. Every siren created fear. Every distant engine sound created panic. Because nobody knew which city would burn next. American crews also witnessed horrifying scenes below them. Many pilots later described entire cities glowing beneath clouds of smoke, while fires stretched across the horizon farther than they could see. Turbulence from the heat shook the bombers violently, while smoke climbed thousands of feet upward into the night sky. Yet despite the danger, the missions continued relentlessly. Japan's fighter pilots grew exhausted. Aircraft shortages increased. Fuel supplies became limited. Experienced pilots were lost faster than replacements could be trained. The psychological effect of the B-29 raid spread across the country. Civilians lived with constant anxiety, while military officials struggled to explain why the bombers kept breaking through defenses. The idea that Japan's homeland could remain protected was collapsing under the weight of every new raid. And then came an even more terrifying realization. The Americans were only becoming stronger. More B-29s arrived constantly. More airfields were captured closer to Japan. More bombing missions struck industrial targets, ports, factories, and cities across the islands. Japanese pilots fought desperately, but the skies increasingly belonged to the bombers. The Superfortress had become exactly what its name suggested, a fortress in the sky. And somewhere deep inside Japan's military leadership, fear began turning into something even worse. Desperation, because the raids were not slowing down. They were escalating. And soon a new mission was coming, a mission that would unleash destruction beyond anything the world had ever seen before. The fires across Tokyo had barely stopped burning when the air raid sirens screamed again. Another raid, another night of terror. Japanese civilians looked toward the dark sky with fear already growing inside them because they knew what was coming. The sound arrived first. Deep engine thunder rolling across the horizon like an approaching storm. Then the searchlights switched on, slicing through darkness while anti-aircraft batteries opened fire blindly into the clouds. And high above them, the Boeing B-29 Superfortress formations kept coming. The bombers looked unstoppable. Inside Japanese fighter bases, pilots rushed desperately toward their aircraft as alarms echoed across the airfields. Ground crews fueled planes at terrifying speed, while officers shouted final instructions over the noise of engines and explosions in the distance. Many pilots already understood the truth. They were being sent into a battle they might not survive. Still they climbed into the cockpits. Still they took off into the burning night. The fighters rose through clouds filled with smoke, while flames from the city illuminated the sky below them in terrifying shades of red and orange. Some pilots could already see entire districts burning beneath thick clouds of smoke. Others saw civilians fleeing through streets lit by firestorms spreading from block to block. Then they spotted the bombers. Massive shapes moving steadily across the darkness. Dozens of them, sometimes hundreds. The B-29 formations flew with frightening confidence while machine gun turrets scanned constantly for incoming attackers. American crews remained tense inside the bombers as enemy fighters approached through anti-aircraft bursts exploding around them. Then the attacks began. Japanese fighters dived toward the bombers at high speed, guns blazing through the darkness. Tracer fires streaked across the night sky, while explosions erupted around the American formations. Some pilots aimed directly for engines, while others targeted wings or cockpits, hoping to bring the massive aircraft down quickly. But the Superfortress fought back hard. Machine gun fire exploded outward from multiple directions at once. Some Japanese pilots suddenly found themselves trapped inside deadly crossfire before they could even complete their attack runs. Fighters burst into flames midair, while damaged aircraft spiraled downward toward the burning city below. Still they attacked again, and again, because the bombers would not stop. One Japanese pilot later described seeing a B-29 continue flying even after heavy damage ripped through one side of the aircraft. Flames poured from the engine, while smoke trailed behind it across the sky. Yet the bomber stayed in formation as though refusing to die. To many Japanese pilots, the aircraft seemed almost invincible. Inside the B-29s, fear never disappeared. American crews could hear bullets striking the fuselage, while enemy fighters flashed past the windows at terrifying speed. Some bombers shook violently from nearby explosions, while wounded crewmen struggled to remain at their stations. Every mission felt endless. Hours of flying through darkness. Hours of tension. Hours of knowing death could appear instantly beside the aircraft. But the raids intensified because American commanders understood something important. Japan's war industry depended heavily on cities packed tightly with factories, workshops, rail lines, and storage facilities. Destroying those targets would slowly cripple Japan's ability to continue fighting. So the bombing campaign expanded. Night after night, cities across Japan faced new attacks. Osaka, Nagoya, and other industrial centers soon experienced the same horrifying scenes already witnessed in Tokyo. Meanwhile, Japanese military leaders grew increasingly desperate. Fighter losses continued mounting while experienced pilots disappeared faster than replacements could be trained. Fuel shortages became severe. Aircraft production struggled under constant bombing pressure. Yet the B-29 raids only grew larger. Then came one of the most terrifying nights of the campaign. Weather conditions were perfect for firebombing. Strong winds, dry conditions, dense urban districts filled with wooden buildings. The bombers arrived after dark. Wave after wave crossed the coastline before spreading across the city below. Incendiary bombs poured downward in enormous numbers, smashing through rooftops before erupting into violent flames. Within minutes, entire streets caught fire simultaneously. Then the firestorm formed. Winds generated by the heat became so powerful they pulled flames rapidly through neighborhoods, trapping civilians between walls of fire and collapsing buildings. Smoke swallowed entire districts while the temperature climbed to horrifying levels. People ran desperately through burning streets, searching for escape routes that no longer existed. Some collapsed from smoke inhalation. Others jumped into canals and rivers trying to escape the heat. The city itself seemed to melt beneath the flames. Above the inferno, Japanese pilots still fought desperately against the bombers. Fighters climbed through smoke clouds illuminated by burning districts below, while anti-aircraft fire exploded endlessly around them. But visibility became terrible. Smoke covered the sky. Flames distorted the air. Searchlights struggled to track targets clearly. Some Japanese pilots lost orientation entirely inside the smoke-filled darkness before crashing without ever seeing the ground. Yet, still the B-29s kept coming. American crews looked downward at scenes almost impossible to comprehend. Entire sections of the city glowed beneath them while fire stretched endlessly across the horizon. Some pilots later admitted the destruction shocked even them. But the missions continued because the war itself had become merciless. Inside Japan, morale began collapsing under the constant raids. Civilians questioned whether the military could truly defend the homeland anymore. Japanese pilots still launched interception missions with incredible bravery, but many already sensed the balance of the war shifting beyond recovery. Some flew outdated aircraft against technologically superior bombers protected by overwhelming numbers and firepower. Still they climbed into battle. Still they attacked the superfortresses head-on, because below them their cities burned night after night. And somewhere beyond the darkness, even larger raids were already being prepared. Raids that would push Japan closer to complete devastation. Raids that would change world history forever.